We have a lot of stuff, not we, my family, but we as a society. Not that my family has any, lack of stuff. Every time I listen to a real estate investor talk about storage as a growth industry, I'm baffled at how this can still be the case. Everyone I know already has more stuff than they need. Sure, stuff wears out, needs to be replaced or repaired. Though repairing, how often does that really happen nowadays? And yes, styles change. You got to replace your wardrobe or pieces of it from time to time. I visited my parents over the summer. My dad took me past their 2 double storage units. This is in addition to their 2-car garage that only fits 1 car because of the stuff, and the 2-car garage behind one of the rental units that's filled with tools. The 2 storage units are filled with building materials. My dad has some rentals, so it makes sense for him to have some building materials. This is a lot of building materials, and he pays like $80 a month for these 2 storage units when he also has a 2-car garage and another 2-car garage that he has access to. He's paid this $80 a month for decades, and it's filled with stuff that will never justify the ongoing expense. So all these building materials, wood, bricks, blocks, buckets of nails, siding, pavers, used stoves, refrigerators, tools, chunks of furnaces, space heaters, shop vacs, even heavy metal shelving that's holding it all of this stuff has value. A homeowner doing work on their own house may want just the siding or just the pavers. A builder with a constant need for materials might take the whole thing off of his hands, kind of at a discount, but then he gets to stop paying his $80 monthly fee to the storage units. We are all absolutely brainwashed to believe that next thing is going to be additive to our happiness. My kids started by being showered with unnecessary gifts for birthdays and Christmas. If it wasn't for Kate, this would still be going on. My wife, this would still be going on in a much heavier force than it is now. But we all but forced them to tie their happiness to the receipt of stuff. Oh, it's your birthday? We celebrate you by giving you things. Now, I've certainly been guilty of this my entire life. I often blame the origin of this issue on growing up in a poor household. I didn't get the things I wanted. So it's as if I'm making up for lost time and making sure my kids don't feel the same lack that I felt. And I've got no one to blame for this but myself. My acquisition of stuff still plays a role in my life. I remember I must have been 15, 16 years old, getting ready to go on a church trip. I bought an expensive camera that I never learned how to use. I bought a Rolex with an early career bonus, the majority of which I used to pay off student loans, so I'm smart sometimes with the money. I wore that watch religiously right up until I didn't, and it's been in my closet now for probably 8 years. I bought an expensive road bike, didn't use that much, so I sold it. A couple years later, I bought the same bike again. Obviously, when you sell it, it's at a discounted value, so I paid twice for the same bike, and I proceeded not to use it again. I started sea kayaking, got really excited about it, so I bought all the paraphernalia, everything but the kayak, and then I didn't stick with it. I joined a golf club once, and this totally shocked my wife because she could count on a hand the number of times I'd golfed since she'd known me. I leased a Mercedes once. I'd like to say that I've learned my lesson. I don't do it anymore, but I literally bought a rowing machine last year that sits right next to me here in my office, totally unused for a number of months now. I'm just as guilty as anyone at this. And if anything, the more money I make and have socked away, the worse I've gotten at not buying stuff. I'm definitely not holding myself out as the example here, at least not the positive example. I mean, maybe I'm an example of how not to do it. I've gotten sucked into buying stuff. I've not thought purchases through, and I regret a lot of these purchases afterwards. For some reason, I don't learn. Now, I could get really upset with myself, and I feel some people nodding along with me saying how appropriate that would be. But I want you to say, look in your own closet, because regardless of how I treat myself on this issue, or how you treat yourself on this issue, or how often I discuss it with my therapist, or how often you discuss, your retail therapy with your therapist, it speaks to how incredibly thorny and difficult and deeply held our belief in the value of things really is. Now, I may blame myself, you may blame yourself, and it's not all our fault because we are literally wired for it. Dopamine is the culprit. The neurotransmitter dopamine is a part of our pleasure center, and it surges when you are considering buying something new. The acquisition of a thing is viewed by the brain as a reward, and we get a little dopamine hit when we anticipate a reward. When the thing we are considering or anticipating or thinking about buying, or the thing we just want, when we see it go on sale, we get a little additional hit of dopamine. Now, if you put that into the context of today's life, your Amazon Echo, your cell phone, these things are all listening for what you are considering buying. And then they are serving you ads to buy those things. We are hilariously outmanned and outgunned in our battle with retail therapy. So if I was strapped for cash and had plenty of time, I would sell the bike, the rowing machine, the camera, the watch, the kayaking gear, and I would buy an index fund, S&P 500, Russell 3000, the All Country World Index, doesn't matter. I would sell the thing that's sitting there gathering nothing, and I would buy something that would create dividends I could reinvest. So take those guilty reminders out of the closet and turn them into wealth producing assets. And when you're ready to do that, you take the equivalent of your equivalent of my camera, watch, bike, rowing machine, and sell them in a digital marketplace. So a couple options: you've got eBay, you've got Bonanza, you've got Craigslist, you've got Facebook Marketplace, you've got OfferUp, you've got Poshmark, you've got Etsy. You can reach buyers all over the globe with almost any one of these things. And in most instances, they're actually going to pay for shipping at the same time. So this option, reducing stuff, selling things, is available to anyone that has anything that can be sold. No need to feel any shame about this. Just realize the truth and do some action, take some action on it, do something about it.